Welcome back to Heart of Conrad. I'm your host, Abigail, and I'm here with Haley, Matilda, Brianna, and Davriana. We're back with our segment of the psychological exploration of the book Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. Do you think that the book's racist undertones, if you consider them racist, are directed to inform the European people of conditions in the Congo and in Africa, or does he have other intentions?
I don't even think he intended them to be racist, and I mean, I guess no racist considers themselves racist either. But honestly, I think he used those undertones to portray the conditions of the Europeans and those in Africa, not even to be offensive or anything.
I agree. I mean, are there any intentionally racist books that have this much popularity? I feel like the environment he was raised in caused him to think a certain way, and even though his intentions weren't to come off as racist, that's what happened.
Yeah, racism is not something that you plan. I do believe Conrad was trying to inform people about the conditions in the Congo because he definitely looked surprised about what he witnessed, but racism isn't a strategy he used to do that.
That might be true, but I would still be wary of what Achebe had pointed out about his muddling tone. Perhaps it might seem like a bit of a conspiracy theory to suggest Conrad was trying to justify his racist beliefs about the people of the Congo, but it does seem like he does so to justify imperialism and colonialization, which is an equally harmful system.
Should Conrad be held responsible for his behavior?
Definitely, he might not have intended his remarks to create the impression that it did, but it was still his words. He can't take them back, so he might as well own up to them. Like psychology says, you form your character by the age 3. So at that point, he knew what he was saying, and he probably knew the reaction he would get.
But like you said before, you guess no racist considers themselves as such. So if he is one but doesn't see it for himself, the things that come out of his mouth are just words to him. Therefore, he might not realize the effect those words have on others. Still, I think he should be held responsible no matter the circumstances. You shouldn't be let off the hook because you don't see how detrimental your actions are.
Everybody is responsible for their actions. However, as explained earlier, it was not his intention to come as racist. I don't think Conrad wants Africans to be witnesses of racism because then what's the point of writing a book about it? What's the point of even making people feel sympathy for them? It seems to me he wants to change their life.
No, you're absolutely right. I guess my point was when you say certain comments, you should expect to get a response. I don't believe he wasn't aware that people wouldn't have at least the slightest remark back to the word choice he chose, I guess. But yeah, he shouldn't be off the hook.
This reminds me a lot of the adage going around lately that you don't get to decide that you didn't hurt someone. In Conrad's time, however, his superego would have been molded by the society he lived in. The superego consists of the morals and restrictions society and your peers place on you so that you conform. With that being said, maybe he's just reflecting with the general sentiments of other Europeans during the time of imperialism. But who knows?
Do you think that Conrad uses our narrator Marlowe as a sort of shield from public opinion on his prejudices?
I never really thought of that. I guess it makes sense, though, to use Marlowe as his voice of protection from society.
Well, I thought of this just because of the amount of description used by Marlowe while telling his story. On the inside, it's him giving details so the others on the boat have a better understanding. But on the outside, I feel like it's Conrad low-key expressing how he felt about the Africans and the Congo in general. And I do agree with you, Matilda, his voice of protection from society.
Given the fact that Conrad wastes no time to directly describe Marlowe as a sailor who seeks only the truth, it sure seems like he wants Marlowe's experience to be seen as like a universal truth.
Yeah, like I said, his character is formed. He's aware of his doings. It might have been his unconscious, but he's still responsible. Because even then, your unconscious is still a part of your mind and opinions. It's just unfiltered.
Would that instead suggest he is aware of his wrongs and that his society of himself nurture his ideas of the African people in comparison to the European people?
Seen as Conrad's alter ego, or...
I think so. It could even be cognitive dissonance at play, which would make sense when it comes to how confusing the setting seems to be at times.
How reliable is Marlowe as a narrator then? Was it a defense mechanism to describe Marlowe as a sailor who would only seek out for the truth? Can he be seen as an alter ego?
I think that Marlowe is indeed a reliable narrator. Many argue that he isn't since he lied to Kurt's mistress at the end of the book, telling her that Kurt's last words were her name. Although that could bring up a question. The situation needs to be taken into consideration as well. When people are placed in any situation, you have to choose flight or fight. In his situation, the lying was just a defense mechanism, his way of dealing with the situation. If he had told the truth, more questions would follow. He would probably end up telling her about Kurt's cheating on her as well. This would cause a lot more pain to this woman. Imagine she was still mourning a year after Kurtz died. That means she still hasn't let go of him. It would do a lot of damage to her, and I respect his decision to lie because it was easier and kinder. This is his super ego taking over because you know that it's wrong to lie, and we see that because he feels bad about it after he also knows that it would be right since she won't break that woman's heart. Plus, psychology considers lying part of our daily life. It is said that human lies at an average of 10 times a week. Thereby, Marlowe should not be considered unreliable narrator for lying.
Could this be confliction between his ID, ego, and superego? What are these exactly, and how do they play a crucial role in developing a point of view and theme in Heart of Darkness?
Heart of Darkness's whole theme was that there's darkness in everyone. Your ID and your ego plays a role in forming who you are. It is who you are. And a part of who Kurtz, Marlowe, and these characters were was darkness.
He might not have had Freud's concepts of psychoanalysis in mind, but I think that the darkness that Conrad refers to is very much the id, which is the pleasure principle. When you're surrounded by all this unreaped land to sow and there's no neighbors to scold you, it's easy to lose yourself into your inhibitions, and all because you know that there will be no judgment awaiting you. You might start to lose yourself in your personality and ego in this frenzy, and you can kind of see that in Kurtz's slip into madness towards the end of the book. And at the very top of the chain, your super ego is no longer there to rule your decisions. I think Conrad is trying to suggest that civilization, which develops the superego and your morals, is what the Congo lacks, and what Europe once lacked.
How can color play into Conrad's description of these natives?
Colors kind of set the tone for symbols in the book, like black, a significant one. Black was a way to describe the Congo, the savages, and evil. For example, in Book 3, he says, I raised my head, the offing was buried by a black bank of clouds, and the tranquil waterway leading to the uttermost ends of the earth flowed somber under an overcast sky, seemed to lead into the heart of immense darkness. So essentially, black was used for like anything dark or evil, and also in those racist marks, but those comments referring to the natives as dark and evil and bad.
Same with the color red, since it's supposed to represent something physical. I think the use of red was to represent bloodshed by the Africans since many died, and show that work needed to be done at the expense of the Africans. For example, in Book 1, it said, there was a vast amount of red, good to see at any time because one knows that real work is done there. I think that red representing the blood, and the blood being a sign of hard work.
Well, that's all the time we have here for today's segment of Heart of Conrad. Those are some valid and interesting thoughts, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Tune in next week for more, where we will explore more into the heart of Joseph Conrad.